Welcome back, family. I know that it has been a hot minute since I last posted, and that is mostly just due to the fact that I have been fortunately very busy behind the scenes juggling a lot of client projects. Again, it's a good thing. It's a great problem to have. I feel very fortunate and blessed, but I have realized that it has kept me away from the fam for a little bit too long. So I figured I would go ahead and put out another one for y'all, and this is a very exciting one because it's actually about a recent pickup that I grabbed, and that is the Sony RX100 VII. I'm actually super stoked on this thing for a multitude of different reasons. I've taken it out a couple times already and I am really impressed and happy with it. I do want to start out with a little bit of kind of the why behind this decision and why I decided to actually pick up the RX100 VII. And it's mainly just because I wanted a do-it-all, take-it-everywhere pocket camera. And honestly, I think that the Sony fits the bill super well. I really racked my brain over this decision and made myself aggravated and anxious about it. I'm a pretty anxious guy. It's hard for me to make big purchases and to just pull the trigger on certain things. But after doing a lot of research and kind of sitting with it for a while and really getting to the core of what I wanted out of a camera for this specific purpose, the RX100 just kind of checked all the boxes. I was looking at a few different camera models before finally arriving at the Sony, the main ones being the Fuji X100 V, the Fuji X-E4, and then the Ricoh cameras like the GR3 and the GR3X. And mainly I was looking at those cameras admittedly because I was just down a black hole of YouTube street photography and kind of daily life photography like I mentioned. And those are just kind of the staple cameras that those guys tend to use. You know, the Fuji X100 V is kind of a veteran street camera, just the X100 line in general at this point. And the X-E4 I liked because it was kind of a smaller version of that. And I've always just loved the look and feel of the Fuji cameras. And then the Ricoh was kind of the hyper compact version of that. Still has a really sharp, nice lens on it and still provided similar results, but in a smaller package, which is really what I was looking for. I fell into the common trap where it's kind of like gear begins to dictate your decisions as opposed to your needs, your necessities kind of dictating your decisions instead, how it should be. I feel like it's kind of a common untold problem that a lot of us have. You know, sometimes we may take too much inspiration from one person, or in my case, we might think that getting a certain piece of gear might help yield better results. And don't get me wrong, of course, gear matters. Gear can be a huge tool and certain features especially can help you accomplish different things, but this just wasn't the case here. Especially since I already have the Sony a6500. And to be honest, this camera does everything just as good, if not some areas a little better than the Fuji and Ricoh cameras. And yeah, it doesn't have the nice little cute pancake lens on it. It doesn't have that film kind of rangefinder look to it or the sleek, stealthy design of the Ricoh. But at the end of the day, it has blazing fast autofocus. The glass that I do have for it is super sharp. And I just kind of decided that the Fuji and the Ricoh were a bit too much camera, especially when I already own something like the Sony. So after being kind of brutally honest with myself, I developed a checklist on the things that I wanted the camera I was looking for to have. The four main pillars that I was kind of looking at, the things that I really wanted this camera to have, were the option of a viewfinder, a nice zoom range, a built-in flash, and finally it needed to be super compact. And that's when we arrive at the RX100 VII, and I'm super psyched on it because honestly, it checks off most of the boxes that I want. It's got the viewfinder, it's got the flash, it's got the awesome zoom range, it is insanely compact. And then the cherry on top is how it has this kind of articulating screen on it. It is super nice, very big, and it's been a pleasure to use so far. And it's funny because of course, when I decided to move toward the RX100 series, is when I decided, okay, well, which RX100 model do I need to buy? And it really came down to the Mark V and the Mark VII. The RX100 Mark V is a little bit more similar to something like the ZV-1. It's got a couple more things that I would argue are more video friendly than photo friendly. And that's pretty much why I ultimately decided to go to the Mark VII, because it has the longer zoom on it, albeit a bit slower of a lens. Again, it's all about flexibility with me. I know that if I'm gonna be taking something in a dark situation, it's probably gonna involve that pop-up flash anyway. So low light capability wasn't a huge kind of decision maker in this process for me. And on top of that, this just has all the latest. It's got the best autofocus. It's got a lot of features that kind of trickled down from something like the A9 in the time. I think this thing's a couple years old at this point, so it's not the most cutting edge, but Luckily with photo, you don't really have to be. I would argue that video specs kind of get outdated and overshadowed a lot quicker than photo specs. So I knew that this thing would accomplish everything that I wanted it to do. So now that I actually have it in hand and have about a week's worth of experience with it, I can honestly say that I'm super happy and have no regrets. This thing honestly punches way above its weight class for what it is. It's built out of metal. It feels really nice and premium in the hand. And perhaps most importantly, I really appreciate the image quality from it. It is way nicer than it has any right to be. Obviously, you do have to manage expectations in situations like these. You know, you're not going to get the depth of field that you get from full frame or ASPC. You're not going to get the low light capability that you get from full frame or ASPC. But for what this is, a 1-inch sensor, it performs incredibly well, and it is tack sharp, looks super great across the entire zoom range. And the first thing people love to say when you do bring out something like a point and shoot is, oh, my phone is just as good. And it's like, let's just end that argument, because it's not. Phones are not as good as this. Phone photography can totally be great. I did a photo all about photography on my iPhone 13 Pro, and it's awesome for certain uses, especially if that's all you have. Definitely create a way and have fun with it. But when you compare it to something like this, I would argue that the biggest difference, on top of a load of other differences, is just the simple fact that you have a dedicated tool for the whole process. I'm the type of guy, I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. You know, this is my passion. This is really everything to me. And I don't enjoy doing photography on a phone. I enjoy having a dedicated tool for the process and to be able to separate that from my phone. So point and shoot cameras are still super valuable to me. And you know, I have full autonomy with this thing. I can shoot raw, I can change all of the settings on the fly. I've got proper autofocus, I've got proper zoom and proper image quality to match. And it really just is in every way better than a phone. It honestly, if you're just looking at it on Instagram or online or something, it performs just as well as something like the A6500. Obviously, this is gonna be the preferred camera for like dedicated work for street photography, portraits and stuff like that. But something like this is perfect for when you just don't want a heavy setup, you don't want to tote around lenses and stuff, and when you want that flexibility. I think this would honestly be a really great first camera for someone that really wants to get into the hobby and enjoy the art. I think that this is an artist's camera. You know, I think this thing is mostly kind of billed to travelers and maybe even kind of older folks that don't want the hassle of learning something like this or dealing with something like a full frame setup. But I think that this is a perfect companion to any working professional or somebody that just wants a nice sidearm camera. You know, this thing has the same menu as the A6500. It has a lot of the same exact features. It's just a really, really capable and powerful camera for what it is. And it acts as a perfect kind of all-rounder when it comes to my kit. If I did have to be nitpicky and find one thing to gripe about, it would have to do with that small size and the overall ergonomics of the camera. And even then, it's not something that I can truly complain about because it's what I wanted. I wanted a small pocket camera. So it's kind of a make your bed and sleep in it kind of thing. Yeah, this thing is kind of slippery. It is kind of hard to handle sometimes, but again, when I have the wrist strap on when I'm walking around with it, I really don't worry about dropping it. I'm not super concerned about it. Adding some sort of proper grip to it, or even like some kind of textured material similar to like what the Ricoh has going on, would be cool for future generations of this camera. But I would argue with the design it does have, you kind of get some of that beautiful simplicity, you know, some of that Leica type stuff. Because I mean, a lot of Leicas are built just like this and nobody says anything about it. We can argue about that in the comments. But moving into the wrap up, again, I'm honestly really thrilled about this. And it's kind of funny because I think that other professionals and, you know, people that are regularly working in the field can relate to, you get to a certain point in your career and in your journey where less is more. You know, you accumulate all this gear, you accumulate all of these different toys and bells and whistles, and you kind of get to the point where you want to step back and scale back and deal with something a little more simple. I've spoken with several people that I work with that feel this same way. It's kind of one of those things like more money, more problems, you know, more gear, more problems. You have all this stuff and eventually it's just kind of like overload, and you want to get back to the things that got you excited about the process in the first place. On top of everything else as well, the RX100 VII has really just been a pleasure to use. It's a lot more fun than I thought it would be. You know, I thought part of my mind, you know, going down that rabbit hole on YouTube that I was down with, you know, picking this over Fujis and Ricohs and stuff, there was part of my mind that was like, am I settling? You know, this camera will do what I need it to do, but is it gonna be fun to use? Is it gonna be inspiring to use? And I can tell you right now, for me at least, I have had a blast with this thing. You know, taking it to the piercing studio with my brother to get his ears done was really fun. You know, I had the viewfinder up, I was taking mirror pics with it, I was zooming in on him getting his ears pierced and everything, and I took some really cool kind of documentary style shots, and especially, you know, you throw the black and white on it, it's just this classic look, and it gives you results that look really good. So yeah, I'm super excited to continue creating with this thing. I'm gonna take it with me as much as I can. You know, it fits in my pocket. I normally like to carry it in a little bag still, you know, just like a little sling pouch type thing. But I definitely want to take it out and do more with it. So, you know, let me know what kind of stuff you want to see with it. Nature stuff, city stuff. I live in the beautiful city of Charlotte, so I have a little bit of everything around me, fortunately. So definitely give me some feedback on that. Let me know what you would like to see as well. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. You know, what is your daily driver camera? What would you choose over this? Or do you agree? Let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I know that it has been a minute since I posted last, so it is always appreciated when the fam decides to stop by. If you're new here, make yourself comfy, like and subscribe, and join the fam immediately. Always remember that you are blessed and you are loved. And as always, I'll be back soon.